name is Clifford, and I'm delighted to be your facilitator for the fifth session for today. Our fifth session is overview of postgraduate coursework programs at Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. Allow me now to share a little bit more information about our speaker this afternoon. He is Associate Professor Bruce Lockheart, the Vice Dean, Graduate Studies, Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. He has dedicated 26 years to the History Department at NUS and has been deeply involved in graduate studies since 2010, first as Assistant Dean and now as Vice Dean. Now, in this session, he will provide a comprehensive overview of the postgraduate coursework programs at the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. Founded in 1929, FASS is celebrated for its extensive academic offerings and tradition of excellence, blending both disciplinary and interdisciplinary training. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to put your hands together and warmly welcome Associate Professor Lockheart.
Do I have a clicker? Yeah, this will be clicker. You press green. Okay. Hi, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm going to give you an introduction, basically department by department, to our various coursework programs. Our faculty, just in the last couple of years, we have taken off quite a bit in terms of the number of coursework programs. Historically, most graduate studies at NUS were research programs with only a small number of coursework programs. But now, over the last few years, and probably within maybe about 4 or 5 years, almost every single department in NUS will be offering a coursework program. Okay, yeah, so this is just a general introduction. This is what we look like. Okay, now as you probably know, there are 3 possible levels that you can do at a graduate in a coursework level. You have the graduate certificate, which is usually 2 courses, graduate diploma, which can be anywhere from 4 to 6 courses, and then the full master's degree, which in our faculty and NUS in general would be 10 courses. And eventually, when all of our programs are at steady state, we hope that every program is going to offer all 3 of these options, because we recognize that many people want to start out with just a sort of a small taste and do the certificate and then work towards the diploma and work towards the master's. Right now, it's a bit mixed. A couple of departments were brave enough to launch everything at the same time. Others are sort of trying to get the full master's program in place at a kind of steady pace before they introduce the certificates and diplomas. But we hope that gradually everyone is going to come on board with all of these. And our programs are meant to be stackable, in a sense that if you do the classes that you can start off, let's say, with a certificate, and then the classes that you take as a certificate you can then use for a diploma, and then the classes for a diploma you can then use for a full master's. And this is particularly good if you are doing if you're doing it part-time. Normally, let's say you have completed 8 courses by a certificate and a diploma, you would still do 2 courses more and probably one sort of a special kind of course that is uniquely for the full master's. And you can get information on that by looking at each program's website. Each program, just as each faculty in FASS, or each department in FASS, has its own kind of personality, I think each of our programs has their own personality as well. And so several of the programs that I'm introducing are very new, and at least one of them is actually not, this will be the first intake and the first cohort. So I want to start out with our Chinese Studies. Chinese Studies is a very well-established department and at NUS, and this is the only program that we offer that is not in English. So if you are not confident of your mother tongue record, then probably, unless you really want to upgrade your mother tongue very fast and jump into the deep end of the pool in Huayu, this would not be the right choice. But for those who if you are very interested in pursuing your knowledge of China and Chinese studies, this would be a very good choice. So Master of Arts in Culture and Language. We have separate research and PhDs by MA and PhD by research for those that are interested just in pursuing one field and one topic. But the point of this program is to give you a wider, broad-based understanding of China overall to go along with the knowledge of the language. And so I asked my colleagues in various departments to give some idea of what jobs you could get with the field as well. So I think almost all my slides will say a little bit about possible employment opportunities. One general statement I would make about the master's programs in our faculty, in many of them, you're not necessarily going to take them and then make a dramatic new change in your career afterwards. In some cases, yes. I mean, let's say if you were trained in one particular field, now you do a master's coursework program in a brand new field, then maybe you would make a career change. Very often, you can use it simply to upgrade your knowledge, to upgrade your skills within the field where you already are. Now, our Communications and New Media program, which is one of our most kind of dynamic departments, has put up 2 new programs. I think they're about in their 4th year now. And one is the generic, sort of more general Master of Communication. I usually differentiate our programs from the Wee Kim Wee School at NTU, which is of course also very good. They're a little bit more traditional, I think, focus on communications, on journalism, and things like that. Our program at CNM is very social science oriented and also very media oriented, so that it's a bit of a different focus from what you would find at NTU. So the general Masters of Communication, we have three different options. So data and communication, strategic communication, global media communication. Now among those, obviously that covers quite a bit of ground. And so you can choose the opportunity to specialize within that major depending on what are your particular interests. The second program, which also has come on board around the same time, is the Master in Arts and Cultural Entrepreneurship. This is meant for people whose work not necessarily directly involving communication in its traditional sense, but for those who are a bit more focused on what we might call cultural kinds of jobs. We do not have a major in cultural studies at NUS, but we do have specialists in cultural studies and culture within the department of CNM. And so this major would have a somewhat stronger focus on fields of culture, on aspects of culture and art, and particularly in terms of management. One of CNM's particular characteristics is that they have quite a number of specialists in the field who come in and teach. Now, in my department, for example, which is history, basically everybody there, all we do is teach history. We're all professional historians. But in CNM, they will have several different people in from the industry, because for them to have people from different aspects of the communications industry to come in to bring their skills is very important. There is, to be honest, no such thing as a history industry in Singapore, so industry don't have. But in CNM, you are really benefiting from a very important combination of both the theory, of academic theory, as well as the actual practice based on work in the field. And so they'll draw on the skills and experience of a wide variety of people, professionals from the field. The Master of Economics, now this is again a master's by coursework rather than master's by research. This is actually our largest program. Currently, I think the cohort is running around 150 students. For this one, we have 2 tracks. One is the Applied Economics track, which is more if you're going to use this professionally. And then we have the Quantitative Economics if you're thinking about an academic career. I'll just divert for a minute here and explain that Traditionally, this kind of coursework master's was not really seen as a step towards a PhD. Most people would do the coursework masters and that would end their studies. But we have found that in several of our programs, students, particularly students from China, but some local students as well, they actually want to use the coursework program as a way of kind of getting their feet wet in graduate studies and also potentially preparing them for a PhD. And this is possible. PhD programs in most cases would like you to have some kind of master's qualification. And usually the preference would be that you have done a master's by research and a master's by thesis. But it's not an absolute requirement. So especially in the field of economics, which I don't understand at all. I always confess to my students, economics was my worst grade as an undergraduate. But they have basically two different fields depending on where you want to go and what you want to do with it. The economics here is, at NUS, it's very quantitative, quite a lot of numbers involved with it. And so they actually are, even if you do not have an economics undergraduate degree, if you have strong quantitative skills, they're probably willing to take you for that. Because they take, for an example, a number of students who have engineering undergraduate degrees. And so one time as vice dean, I queried them on this, and I say, well, you know, these people, they hardly took any economics, and they were engineers. And the department said, but they can do the numbers. They can do the quantitative stuff. The economics, we can teach them. So if you have a non-economics background, but you have strong quantitative skills, and this is a program, you could still look into it. One other point to be made, generally speaking, when we compare coursework programs and research masters, coursework programs, we set the bar for entrance in a very different place. Most coursework programs are open to a much wider variety of backgrounds because we're not asking you to come and do a 30,000-word thesis, right? If you're going to come and do a 30,000-word thesis with me, I want to make sure that your research skills are very strong and you've already been trained in this field. But for many of these, in fact, really all of these coursework programs are much more flexible in terms of the background. So that if you have a background in one particular area and now you want to make a switch, this may be a good choice for you. Generally speaking, for most of our coursework programs, there are no scholarships available. Now, as I think all of you are aware, for Singaporeans, there is now the 40% rebate on tuition fees. PRs, there is also a rebate. I cannot remember whether it is exactly the same. I have been telling people that if you are thinking about taking advantage of this, I would do it now. Nobody knows how long this generous rebate is going to last, okay? Because the main purpose of the rebate is to encourage more Singaporeans to come and do these coursework programs. And if 2 or 3 years down the line, the NUS says, oh, great, now we've got lots and lots of Singaporeans, so rebate, no need already, okay? Then it's going to go back up to full fees. So I would encourage you to take advantage of it while it lasts. In the economics program, because basically they make so much money off this master's, we always tease our economics colleagues that this is the cash cow. But it is. It brings in a lot of money, and they plow it directly back into scholarships for graduate students. So there are a few scholarships available. I think you can go to their website to find out more. In general, though, for postgraduate coursework, you will be paying your own way. Now, our English department, we now have, because our English department is divided into 3 parts: linguistics, literature, and theater studies. If you have been familiar with NUS programs, the literature and linguistic ones have been around for a while. They were previously in existence as MOE subsidized programs, then they closed down and now have been reopened without the subsidy as self-funding programs. So both of the language and the literary studies, both are, and theater studies, all of them, each one of them is focusing on one of the particular specializations of that department. My colleagues in the department are essentially divided into 3 different groups, depending on what their specialization is. So, and I will mention, because I was talking to a lady earlier, we, in about 2 years, okay, this is still akan datang, but we hope to have it. In about 2 years, we should have a program up and running specifically on teaching English as a foreign language. Right now, the English language, English linguistics program we have is not really pedagogically oriented. It's not really what you would take in order to teach English. But my colleagues in the English Language Center, which is for teaching English, they are preparing a master's program, which we hope to have running in 2 years' time. So if you are thinking particularly about getting some training in order to be an English teacher, you might want to wait a year or 2 and take that instead. So then the theater studies. Now, our geography, and today there are representatives at our table of geography, the CNM program, and also of Japanese studies if you want to go and talk to them afterward. Our geography program, which is our geography is one of our very strongest departments and probably has the best reputation internationally in the faculty. They have had a program for a number of years in applied GIS. And my understanding from my colleagues is that you do not actually have to have a related background in order to do this. I would assume you have to be a techie to a certain degree, otherwise I don't think it's going to make any sense. But so they have the Masters of Science in Applied GIS, which is a very well-established program. Then they have a brand new program, Masters of Climate Change and Sustainability. Sustainability, of course, is one of the big buzzwords now. The government is putting a lot of investment into it. NUS has a committee basically focusing on promoting sustainability programs. So in response to that, Geography is offering this new program. This would be the first cohort now, because the program has only just been approved. So if you are interested in this, and you have, I think this one, they would take people with a wide variety of backgrounds. It is a very good chance to study with a very top department. Now the history, which is my own, we have been running the coursework program for 4 or 5 years now. So we have one program which is more applied and public history. This one is a bit more conceptual, and this would be, for example, for people who are working in heritage, who are working in the archives, focusing more on history in terms of public knowledge. Then we have Asian global history, which is a little bit more the traditional history with mainly focus on specific countries. And we have newly a double degree with London School of Economics, so that you can go through, you will spend time at both universities and get a degree from both. Now, our history, the traditional stereotype, I've been in Singapore for 26 years, and I know that most people think that the main thing that you do with a history degree is you either go to become a history teacher, or you go to work for National Heritage Board or National Library Board. Now, the fact is that in every given cohort, only a small percentage of our students would go to become teachers. My best students are in MFA, in ISD, and in MINDEF. And so for the last 2 categories, I have no idea what they do because they can't tell me. But I always joke that if I ever get in trouble, at least I've got lots of lobang in ISD that will hopefully help me out. My point is that we have history graduates in probably every single ministry, every single stat board in Singapore. And this is in fact true for our entire faculty. When you come to FASS, you are not just getting the knowledge in a specific subject. You are also getting a broader package of skills. So you're getting skills in terms of doing research, skills in terms of presentations, and these things are very important because the jobs, now many of you, I think you're probably already out in the working world, and there's a very strong chance that what you are doing does not correspond to your undergraduate major, which is actually quite normal. And so the point is that if, let's say, you want to change to another government ministry or you want to start working with the government, they will teach you the specialized knowledge that you need for that job. What we will teach you is, in some cases, foundation of knowledge, but in other cases, what we will give you is to upgrade your package of skills. And so in that sense, I think the programs at FASS can be a good way to transition, to get a new set of skills or to add to a set of skills to transition to something else. A second brand new program this year, no, actually third, I think, is Japanese Visual Cultures. We have a very strong Japanese studies program at NUS. One of the peculiarities of NUS is that we have 5 different Asian studies departments: Chinese studies, Japanese studies, Malay studies, South Asian studies, and Southeast Asian studies. So we have 5 different departments focusing on particular countries or areas. Then we also have specialists on those fields in other departments. So my specialization is Southeast Asian history. I'm in the history department. There are also colleagues in Southeast Asian studies that teach history. So we have different master's programs that will give you a different emphasis. This one is focusing on Japan and particularly focusing on visual culture. Now, of course, the first things that come to mind are manga and anime, and you would, I suppose, learn to analyze those from a more academic point of view. But there are other stuff as well. And the point of this is to really help you to be able to unpack Japanese culture, right? To be able to get an insight into the different kinds of visual culture and what's going on behind it. So if you have an interest in Japan, and especially if you have some Japanese language skills already, this could very well be a good choice for you. And so there are many different kinds of jobs. Japanese studies graduates go into a number of different kinds of jobs. Lots of Japanese companies in Singapore are very willing to hire people. And this, if you have this background and a bit of language, this could make you more attractive, more employable to a Japanese company. Now, I'm just going to briefly mention social work because, generally speaking, people who are in that field know it already. There are 2 main schools that teach social work, which is NUS and SUSS. So if you have not had a background in social work, but you wish to come now and begin to get one, then we have the graduate diploma. If you are already trained and you now want to upgrade your skills, then we have the Master of Social Work by Coursework. Now, the social work, again, this is very specialized. You would normally not come, I don't think you would come into this if you have spent your life as a complete island, uncaring person, and you suddenly begin to care about people and want to be a social worker. I suspect you may have a hard time selling yourself. But generally speaking, social work, they want you to have a combination of some academic background and experience in the field, in terms of whether you have worked with a family service center, or let's say you have worked with a program in your church. They are quite wide, quite broad in the way they define experience. But if you have not been in a social work field and you are considering joining it, I would encourage you to email my colleagues at the social work department. Everyone there has been a practitioner of social work as well as a teacher in the field, and they can give you very good advice about joining their programs. Okay, I think the last one is Southeast Asian Studies. So right now, we have 3 departments that are focusing on a region. So or a country: Chinese Studies, Japanese Studies, Southeast Asian Studies. And so Southeast Asian Studies, this one is a focus on contemporary Southeast Asia, so largely looking at the present. Our Southeast Asian Studies as an interdisciplinary, are there more slides there or not? There should be 2 more. Okay. My colleagues in Southeast Asian Studies Department represent half a dozen fields. So the point of something like this, which we would call an area studies, basically an area studies master's, is that you can learn history, politics, economics, culture, a number of different aspects of Southeast Asia. So if you, for example, let's say you want to go and work for a consultancy, some kind of risk consultancy. Any consultancy working on Southeast Asia, this is going to give you a very, very solid background in the region. So that the courses that they offer are a combination of, some of them are individual countries, so you spend a whole semester studying Thailand or Indonesia in this class, and some of them are many of them are region-wide. And so they also lead, these are the careers that I think many of the undergraduate alumni are working in, and those same careers I think would be open. Traditionally we have a number of people from government ministries that would come and take this program because they want to pivot a bit more in a bit more specialized direction. And so this will give them a good, solid package. We can honestly say that if you are interested in studying Southeast Asia, NUS is one of the very best places in the world, just in terms of the amount of expertise that we have. And so it gives very good, very solid training in a particular regional area of expertise. And so we would love to have you join us. And I guess now I will take questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Lockhart. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for Q&A. As mentioned previously, the Q&A session will be conducted via poll EV. The QR code you see on screen, you can please scan that for our on-site participants and virtual participants as well. But additionally, for our on-site participants, additional bonus for you, there are 2 mics located at the center aisle. You may use those mics to pose the question to Professor Lockhart. Let's give them some time now. We've got 1 question on screen. For the Asian and Global History program, will the curriculum be taught through the lens of an Asian or global perspective?
Well, we would certainly try to give you an Asian perspective. It depends, of course, on which particular class you are taking. I'm not sure exactly what a global perspective would be. If you mean, are you going to learn history from an Angmo perspective, then no. I mean, I myself am obviously an Angmo, but I have spent half my life in Southeast Asia. I speak 4 Southeast Asian languages, and so I think I'm pretty good at teaching students from a Southeast Asian perspective. So all of us in the department, we are specialists in particular countries or particular areas, and normally our main purpose is to try to get students to understand how people in those countries would see their own history. Now, we deal, of course, with global issues. If we look specifically at Western perspectives on Asia, it is almost always looking at them critically, to criticize, to recognize the prejudices and the biases. So there is not going to be any sort of rah-rah colonialism or things like that. So again, because I think all of us who are Westerners in the department teaching, we all have knowledge of at least 1 Asian language. So we are trying to give a perspective more from the inside than from the outside.
Thank you for the response and self-disclosure. I'd like to open up any questions to the floor, or we wait for questions online. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, thank you so much for the sharing. I just wanted to check if it's possible to share the theater slide, because I think
slide.
that was skipped.
Hang on for a moment. Let's see if we can pull up the theater slide. I think that was the second last or the third last.
Sorry, which theater studies you said?
The theater studies.
Yeah, that would be, it is under English, so it would be between economics and history in the slides.
I think they're very colorful. Is this the one, ma'am?
No, theater studies. Go back. English is between economics and history. Okay. I think 1 more before that. Oh, sorry, no, before geography. Okay, 2 more. Yes, that one. All of the information that is, these slides are particularly prepared by the departments, but there should be information and contact emails on all of the relevant departments in the faculty.
I think it's more like a difference between theater
Okay, I mean, generally speaking, across the board, they're just, if you were going to do a master's by research in theater studies, it would mean that you really wanted to focus on one particular topic, to spend 2 years studying it, researching it, and then writing a thesis about it. And some people do that, but the number of graduate students by research in theater studies is fairly small. And so I think that this coursework program is going to probably be larger than the research students and the research programs, and it's also meant to attract all the programs in theater studies attract practitioners. But the coursework program would be probably a lot more practice with a certain amount of academic focus, whereas I think that the research masters would probably be the reverse, and much of the work would be going into the master's project itself.
Thank you. I've got a question here. This person has applied for the Masters in Economics program in August. He wants to confirm if he will get the result or any further communication before May 2025, or will I have to wait till May?
No, it should be earlier than that. If the acceptances for the coursework programs, we would usually send out, I think, by March or April. Okay, I don't think that anywhere would have to wait until May, because we realized that would be quite late.
Thanks for the response. Another question that came in, MA ACE program is unique and niche. How does the program facilitate industry partnerships or career opportunities for students and alumni?
Okay. The CNM program has a lot of connections with the industry, partly through their own alumni, partly through the practitioners that come in and teach, and also because they are one of the departments that is at the forefront in terms of undergraduate internships. And so now they are, I believe that internships are going to be an important part of the master's program as well. If you want to know more details, probably you should go to the FASS booth and ask my colleague, because she would know more of that. But I know that CNM, generally speaking, they have a very wide network of lobang, and they put them into use for internships as much as they can. For career guidance, I think they give some. We also have at NUS the CFG, the Center for Future Ready Graduates, which basically is the career office, and they used to be only for undergraduates, but now they are including graduate students in their services, so they are also there to help with job search.
Thank you for the response. Next question here. How would the new MSc in Climate Change and Sustainability distinguish itself from the older NUS MSc Environmental Management? What are some of the strong points of focus?
Okay, for details, you would probably have to ask my colleague. I mean, I think that the environmental management, that probably dates from a time before sustainability was as much of a buzzword as it is now. But if you think about climate change, you think about sustainability, these are terms that have really become very popular in, let's say, the last 2 decades. So I would imagine that one is going to be, in a sense, more cutting edge. Not to say that the environmental management one is old-fashioned, but simply that it has been around longer, but this one is really meant to be very contemporary, focusing on contemporary issues. But you can ask my colleague more.
Thank you. Does the 40% tuition rebate apply to all postgraduate programs at FASS? How do you apply for it? Okay,
the rebate, as far as I know, is for all postgraduate programs at NUS, all of them. How it works, I think, depends on which department you're applying to. Some departments, I think they would give you the 40% right off the bat. Others, you would need to pay first, and then they would pay you back, okay? I don't handle money because I'm not a money person. I barely handle my own finances, don't say NUS's. So I honestly don't know the details, but I guarantee that the 40% is there. But you would need to contact the specific department to know exactly how it works.
Thank you. For the master's via research, is it possible to have direct entry into the PhD during or after the end of the master's?
Okay. If you are very, very good, you can sometimes upgrade to a PhD while you're doing the master's. But we don't do that, I would say, more than maybe 1 or 2 students a year. In most cases, if you are in the master's by research, it's because the department did not feel that you were ready for a PhD. So there are cases where students apply directly for PhD, and the department looks at their record, interviews them, and says, no, you need to do master's first. There are other cases where the student applies for a master's. The department says, oh no, you're better than you think. We'll take you directly into PhD. In most cases, the department is going to place you where they think that you are the best fit. Now, if you want to do a PhD and stay on and do a PhD afterward in the same department, generally speaking, if you have done well in your master's, your chances of staying on for PhD are very good, particularly if you're Singaporean. We are very anxious always to have a good critical mass of local PhD students. So if you have had a good record as a master's, you have not cheesed off too many people, you have not gone and broken any windows in the department office or things like that, your chances of staying on are pretty good. And quite a number of master's students, I would say if we look at our local master's students, there is sort of one bunch that is using the master's at NUS then to help them springboard to a PhD overseas. There are others, but there are others that will stay on and do the PhD at NUS. So if you have a good record as a master's, in most cases, you would be able to stay on, and I think I can say that if you have a strong record, you would probably be a priority for a scholarship as well.
Thank you. Is the pedagogical approach in coursework postgrad programs very similar to the NUS undergraduate curriculum?
I think it probably depends on which department you're talking about. Now, of course, because most of us are teaching both undergraduate and graduate classes. Now, for example, I teach a graduate seminar and teach undergraduate classes. I'm not sure that my pedagogy is significantly different for graduate students. I'm simply functioning at a higher level. So I would say a lot of it, we are doing roughly the same things, especially if you compare the graduate modules to a 4,000 level course, which would be an honors level course. Because the honors is the top that we have for our undergraduates, generally speaking, graduate modules and undergraduate 4,000 level honors modules would look quite similar. It's just that the level at the higher one is going to be a bit tougher, and the assignments will be longer. I suppose that in some departments, they may be doing specific things that they do not do for undergraduate classes. Or conversely, there may be some things that for example, group presentations, okay? In my department, in history, a lot of colleagues will use group presentations for undergraduates. I don't think that they do that for graduate students. I never use presentations, full stop. So there are certain kinds of assignments and teaching that are more appropriate for undergraduates. I can't really think of very much that would be specific to graduate studies. But ideally, you are supposed to be functioning at a higher level than for undergraduates.
Thank you. May I just, at this juncture, check if anyone is from the floor wants to ask a question before I go to the next online one? Anybody from the floor? No? Okay. So the next question. In what ways have the various FASS humanities programs evolved to address the complex challenges of a rapidly changing world, especially the AI-driven world we're grappling with right now?
Well, if you're talking about AI, that is a whole sort of separate track at NUS right now. Just as sustainability, as I mentioned, there's a sort of coordinating committee on sustainability. There is also a coordinating committee to oversee AI. About a month ago, when all the vice deans were meeting, I sat through a presentation of about 4 new AI master's programs, most of which went completely over my head because I'm not a tech person either. Now, having said that, most of the new programs we put forward, we will try to draw some on existing resources from FASS. So for example, Scale, who is sponsoring this whole event, they are coming up with a new program on AI that is going to draw on specific courses in economics and in communications from our faculty. So I don't expect a fully FASS program on AI anytime soon, but certainly we will be participating in others, in programs from other faculties, and generally speaking, we try to keep our classes up to date as much as possible. Even in history, where I'm covering 2,000 years in one semester, I try to get my students to understand how what they're learning in the past focuses what's going on today. So I think that virtually all of us as good teachers will keep upgrading to keep our course content relevant, and those colleagues who are focusing on more current day-to-day things, society, cultural, economics, especially, we understand that students coming in for graduate programs have very concrete needs, very specific needs in terms of the working field, and so I think we try quite hard to equip people with the latest knowledge and skills.
Thank you. One question here. Would you say a working parent with children be able to cope with the assessment demands and schedules of coursework programs in general?
If you are working or parenting, I certainly think you would want to do it part-time. Basically, all of our programs are available with a part-time option. And generally speaking, that's what most of our Singaporean students would do, because unless you're able to take a whole year off from work, and I don't know of many employers in Singapore that are generous enough to give you a year of unpaid leave, you are probably going to be juggling multiple things at the same time. My recommendation, and I've already given it to a couple people today, especially if you haven't been in school for a while, I would start the first semester with just one course. And because during the first semester, you're going to be readjusting to the academic environment, which may have been a while ago in your past. You're going to need to learn to see, if you're married with kids, how much you can rely on your spouse to jaga the kids while you're studying, and various things. So I think starting out with one class on a part-time basis is probably a good idea. And because obviously how you manage your time, how big are your commitments in terms of work and family, that varies from person to person. But I will say, we have quite a number of students who are working and raising families and still studying part-time. And we are, generally speaking, quite flexible. Your candidature, the period of time that you are studying, can be extended quite a bit. And if you are doing a part-time master's, the default candidature would be 3 years, but that is a minimum candidature. So it's very easy to keep going, to extend it. We have graduate students that get serious illnesses. We have graduate students with parental care, childcare issues, and we keep extending the time, because as long as the departments are generally supportive of students, and if we know that you're in a difficult situation, you need more time, then it's fine.
Professor, do you have any advice for undergraduate students who intend to go into research but unsure where to start building portfolio aside from their undergraduate studies?
Well, if you are coming straight out of, let's say, NTU or NUS, and because NTU and NUS have roughly the same set of majors, SMU a little bit different, you can, generally speaking, you don't really need to have a portfolio to get into a master's degree, okay? You would just need to have a reasonably good record, ideally have done an honors thesis, The honors thesis option is becoming a lot less popular now with our students. I'm not sure at NTU, but our advice, generally speaking, to our undergraduates is if you are thinking at all seriously of doing a master's, you should do the honors thesis. So if you have had a good undergraduate time, good overall undergraduate track record, and you can find 2 profs, including hopefully a thesis supervisor, that can write you a good reference, I believe both NUS and NTU, we would prioritize our own students for the masters. And certainly in FASS, again, if you made it through your 4 years without causing too much trouble, and the department is not anxious, is not ready to say goodbye to you and kick you out the door, your chances of staying on and probably of getting a scholarship are pretty good. We also, I mean, generally speaking, we now have students coming over from NTU. A good NTU student can usually get a scholarship as well. Because for a master's program, it's not a big deal. So if you are thinking seriously about a PhD, you should start with a master's and just take one step at a time.
Thank you. Do NUS Master's Coursework Program have prerequisites such as how many years of work experience, and does this apply to all programs in general?
Most programs, to my knowledge, do not require specific work experience. Social work does. For the CNM, you might want to check their website because they might want some work experience. But for the others, generally, no. The main place that work experience comes into play would be in a couple of programs if, let's say, you did not have an honors degree. You had a bachelor's degree, but not an honors. Some programs will accept several years of working experience in lieu of an honors year. But you would need to look at the specific department because we have one set of very baokajao arrangements at the faculty level, but the other things are specific to each department. But generally speaking, the prerequisites are not that much.
Thank you. We've got a minute or two, just final check. Anybody from the floor would like to ask a question? No? Okay, I've got one more here. Just curious, was there a reason why visual cultures was selected as the focus for the coursework program for Japanese studies?
Well, the programs like that usually come out of someone's vision, and usually it's because you will have 2 or 3 colleagues in a department that have specializations that are linked to that, but it is partly related to what the department's expertise in. It is partly related to what they feel would be marketable and would be interesting, both in Singapore and overseas, and it is partly related to what else is available in the region. So we will, generally speaking, try to choose programs that are more or less unique or that have very little competition in the region. So those are the 3 main categories.
Thank you very much. Final shout out. Any questions from the floor? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Lockhart. We've come to the end of the Q&A session. Thank you very much, sir. This way, please.